baby, listen to me speak, yeah. No matter what, just let it go.
Pop, Perswayable. What's going on, everybody? My first Dead by Daylight mobile video. Make sure you check out us on Discord. It's going to be filled with Dead by Daylight mobile players and Identity V. We got about 3,500 people. So here we go. You like that pitch? Nice and quick? All right. So there's a lot of questions in regards to do we think that Identity V players are going to be able to adapt to Dead by Daylight mobile? I think the answer is yes. We're going to get into that. As you can see, Claudette is my first character that I'm using on Dead by Daylight mobile. I was within the top 3 tiers on PC. So I'm just kind of navigating over to the mobile market now. So I don't have all my perks. I don't have all that stuff. So just bear with me for now. Believe it or not, I messed this video up. When I was recording it, it recorded like very tiny. Like it went in portrait mode, even though I was trying to record in landscape. So I had to like zoom it in. So I don't even know if this is going to show up on YouTube correctly, but I'm hoping that the future videos will be better. Anyways, let's talk about it. Do I think Identity V players are going to adapt? And the answer is I absolutely do. The games are actually really different. It's like comparing Call of Duty to Battlefield, and I don't think that that is a popular or a good comparison, right? Call of Duty and Battlefield, we understand that these games are shooters, but we also understand that these games are really, really different. And we don't have too many examples of that within the asymmetrical format. You know, you have Horrorfield, which is, I mean, just Horrorfield is absolutely awful. You should have, it's as good as my senior pictures. You know, I should put that in here so you guys can see how awful I look, but I'm not going to. So anyways, with Identity V and Dead by Daylight, they have morphed into very different games, okay? And one of the problems is, and I'm going to be very blunt with this, a lot of players in Dead by Daylight could not adapt. It was a whole different game style, a whole different way of playing. We always have people who go on the Identity V main chat and say, oh, the hunters are camping, they're trash. Well, because it's different in Dead by Daylight. And a lot of high tiers understand that these are the strategies. It's like an Identity V player going over to Dead by Daylight and preaching to them how to play their game, right? Different games have different strategies. And a lot of people, what they'll do is say, oh, well, you know, the survivors don't have stuns in Dead by Daylight. By the way, other than the flashlight, I've made that comment before, so I'm guilty as well. But we know that there are differences between it. So when you criticize Identity V players for their play style in their own game, and then you assume that they're not going to adapt, really what the argument is one of two things. You were either a Dead by Daylight player who couldn't adapt and excel, so you just complained about the game, or you just didn't like the game style. It was boring, right? One survivor dies in the first 60 seconds, the match is pretty much over. For a lot of players, that's not fun. So either one is just pretty much the reality of where the argument stems. Well, I think that there's some things that we have to compare. First of all, in Dead by Daylight, all right? So I'm actually going to complain about myself. I made a post the other day saying that a lot of Identity V survivors are going to struggle. Now, when I said that, I didn't mean that Identity V survivors aren't going to be good at the game eventually, but the play style is very different. So one of the things that we have to consider when we're comparing this, well, how about we look at it? It's not going to highlight every point. I'm kind of going on the top of my head here. You know how I do my videos? I usually try to do them in one go, so I don't have to be fake or anything. But let's talk about this. So with Dead by Daylight, right? Even though you don't have stuns, you don't have portals like Priestess, you don't have elbow pads like Mercenary, you don't have perfumes like Perfumer, you don't have dance boxes like Dancer, etc. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. It is considerably easier to stun in Dead by Daylight. We also know that the original top tier players of Identity V will probably have an easier time transitioning because they had to learn how to kite by using their environment. Right? And that's how Dead by, you're going to actually see this right now in this footage. And by the way, I know that there's going to be some people who kind of look at the gameplay and are like, oh, you messed up here, you messed up there. Yeah, I did. Unfortunately. And that's how you get better. So I'm going to show just my raw gameplay. I could totally messed up on this kiting. All right? But my point in the matter is, in regards to this gameplay, all right, it's easier to use pallets in Dead by Daylight. You do have certain perks that can speed you up and get you out of harm's way, which you don't necessarily have in Identity 5. You do have Prospector with the Cypher, where you get a little bit of a speed boost, right? The difference is that in Identity 5, though, if you're a kiter and you die in the first 60 seconds, or you go down in the first 60 seconds, it's game over. But we know that in Dead by Daylight, that is not the case. In fact, in Dead by Daylight, the entire ranking system, okay? The entire ranking system is based on your individual points, and you get rewarded for doing more things. If you camp the survivors, you don't get any points. You get very little points. You will not rank up. You can win your match and still not rank up because you didn't accrue enough points. So Dead by Daylight actually punishes you by camping, right? So in Dead by Daylight, you have this luxury where if you get caught, if you screw up as a survivor, the match still goes on. It's not unheard of where matches go on for 10, 15 minutes, whereas in Identity 5, the average match is like 7, 8 minutes. Actually, sometimes lower than that. Matches in high tiers can be done in under 5 minutes. So the difference here is that with Identity 5, there's a bigger consequence of being caught early game than what there is in Dead by Daylight. The matches are also a lot longer in Dead by Daylight as well, so you are expected to kite longer. I definitely think that the Identity 5 players, okay, will be able to adapt. I think the hunter situation is going to be a little difficult for Identity 5 hunters to adapt to. And the reason being so is, again, you can't really camp as much. I mean, you can camp in the beginning, but you're not going to get enough points to get high tier. You got to get really good at navigating the map. But I have confidence that they're going to be able to. I've met plenty of good Call of Duty players who eventually were really good Battlefield players, right? So I do think Identity 5 players will be able to adapt to this game, but they're going to have to learn. There's going to be things that they have to learn. I think that there's going to be less stress on the kiters early game, and they have to use their environment to their advantage. But on the other hand, right, when I criticize the survivors of Identity 5 and I say, hey, you have all these stuns, you have all these things, well, with Dead by Daylight, you don't have hunters like Bloody Queen massacring you from across the map with a self-image, right? With a mirror image. So those points that you have, those skills, are relative to how good the hunters are. To emphasize that point, what I'm essentially saying is that even when I make my criticisms, right, and I say, oh, well, you know, the survivors in Identity 5 take less skill to kite. Again, you have Enchantress, you have Prospector, you have all these different stuns that you can do on the hunter. Well, the difference really is that the killers on Dead by Daylight, all right, don't have the same overpowered abilities as what some of the hunters have. They don't, I mean, I'm kind of like summarizing this up as nice as I can, but you know, with the Ripper, you got to worry about the Foggy Blade going through a wall, which is something you don't got to worry about in Dead by Daylight. You know, you got the Hillbilly, which is the equivalence of the Clown in Identity 5, which is considered one of the stronger hunters, but in Identity 5, the Clown is relatively manageable. I mean, of course, you have survivors that can do the stuns. So the only problem when people make that argument, and the argument is, to be more concise, well, it's easier to kite because you have all this stunning potential in Identity 5. Well, it's also relative to, again, hunters that can pull off crazy sorts of maneuvers that really traditionally only the Nurse and Hillbilly could pull off in Identity 5. I'm sorry, in Dead by Daylight. God, I'm going to mess that up quite a bit. By the way, this gameplay that you're seeing now is going to be the better quality that you should get used to when I'm playing the game. Okay? So, all in all, I think that the hunters or killers, so I am using both terminology here. I'm just going to use one for the sake of the Identity 5 community. But I do believe that hunter mains will have a little bit more difficulty adapting than what the survivors will. Camping will no longer be an option. You got to really be able to outmaneuver and outsmart a survivor. And that goes beyond just throwing a Foggy Blade through a wall, right? And then on top of that, in Dead by Daylight, you're going to also have to worry about the 4-man teams. We know in Identity 5, a lot of top-tier hunters don't have to worry about that because there's rank mode. Now, what I would say is I would actually make the argument that the NAEU hunters or killers, right, are very well suited to actually be able to compete against 4-man or 4-woman teams because our market is considerably less. The reason why a lot of servers don't consider the United States, Northern American, European server to be deadly is because our market is traditionally smaller. So when you look at the top 10 survivors in our server, many of them know each other and they're on Discord, and when they match up together, they just go on Discord and they can communicate as a 4-man team, even in legendary rank mode. If I do have some DBD players, pretty much in Identity 5, when there's legendary rank mode, which is tier 5 or up, kind of picture tier 5 or lower, or rank 5 or lower in DBD, you cannot enter a match with 4 people. You can only enter the match with one other person, and that's to make it harder. Well, in markets with more people, it's harder for them to do this. It's harder for them to play rank mode because they only have one other friend they're talking to. Whereas in the United States, Northern American, European server, we have such little people playing that it's like, oh, this person's playing. Person A is playing. I know that. I'm going to go to their Discord. We'll talk for this match. So I do think that the hunters on our server are more likely to face 4-person teams in legendary rank than any other server. And that's because our market is traditionally smaller. So at the end of the day, when we discuss this, and you have people in the Dead by Daylight community saying, oh, well, the Identity 5 players, they're going to be playing our match, and watch out, the killers are going to camp the entire time. Well, yeah, because they played a game that was the way to win, and there will be a learning curve to it. Just like in Call of Duty, you can rush and charge in the map, and in Battlefield, sometimes you'll learn that that's not the best strategy, and by learning, you'll realize, hey, I'm not ranking up as much. All in all of you boo-boos are going to be fine. You're going to represent us well. You guys will learn. I don't like this whole, oh, Dead by Daylight versus Identity 5. Which one's better? Dude, it's like Call of Duty versus Battlefield. And also, look at this crap. Look at this shit. You know, this can happen in this match where I just get my head completely electrocuted. Look at me. I look dead. Look at that smelly breath. Thank you for watching, guys. I love you. Tell me your thoughts. Hey, yo, it's the rap magician. It's my outro, homie. I like to eat chicken. I like to cook a lot of food when I am in the kitchen. Yeah, what? I don't have outro music, so like, I don't know, if you think that was bad, then my rapper name is Call Me Lil Nety's Ping.